Hey everybody, this is not my norm and it's not a tutorial channel or anything like that, but I've had a lot of questions about installing mineral wool insulation, and so I figured I would just kind of do a quick set of tips that I have come up with over the years. A couple of caveats. First and foremost, this is a more rigid material than you would get at the big box store. This is mineral wool safing, which is actually for the purpose of blocking fire from moving from maybe one floor to another or something like that. There's usually a specification that says something like, thou shalt install the safing at a minimum 40% compression or something, which essentially means if you take a 4-inch piece, you're going to compress it to a little bit over 2 inches to get to that 40%. So anyways, this is just a little bit more rigid for that perspective. So I just want to make sure that you don't feel like yours is wrong or different or bad. You're also going to see the other insulation that I have is a different color installed in the wall once we get to that point. That's just because it came from 2 different companies. So I'm actually in a dire situation where I can't get what I need, so I'm using this as a stopgap. So first and foremost, mask is what I would recommend here. I tend to have asthma and will have a reaction just to the dust that you might be kicking up. So always a good idea. Likewise, protective eyewear. I prefer, when I'm using this material, to actually wear goggles, but I can't find mine right now. And the goggles are just helpful because as you're putting this material in, some of that stuff might fall down and it might get around the glasses. So I like goggles in this particular scenario. Gloves would also be a good recommendation here, but I need the dexterity with my hands. So first tool is this knife. It looks like a bread knife, acts like a bread knife. You can see it's serrated, big serrations on one side. It's got smaller serrations on the other side. It's not terribly sharp. It's made by one of the insulation manufacturers. Not here to promote a product or anything like that. Not sponsored. But this particular knife is made by that. You can actually get some within some of the big box stores with the distributors that sell this product to commercial installers. So you get a couple of different options. If you don't have that, this is like a bread knife, but 2 caveats there. I would recommend that you not use it for cutting bread ever again, because what you might do is you might get little slivers of metal. This is a basalt rock and a steel slag mixture of a material. Those are 2 pretty hard materials. And that brings me to the second issue, which is it would dull the blade. You don't need a terribly sharp blade to do this cutting, but it wouldn't necessarily be your best knife that you would want to use in this scenario. The next tool that you would want to use is a tape measure, and I actually would recommend splurging here. This is one of my favorites. I have probably one for every room. I use them at work. I use them around the house. It has a really great standoff, which means how much it's actually standing off from the tape measure. That is going to be handy here in a second. This one is also magnetic, and that is handy as well. Not a requirement, but man, it just makes life so much easier. So that's what I have for this particular project. Now, what I'm going to do is I want to cut it to 14 inches right here. And I'm actually going to, let me flip it around. I'm going to stick it with the magnet to the edge of my knife. Not a requirement, but just super handy. And then I'm just going to simply run that 14 inches along the edge of my insulation. You can see that here. Hopefully you can see it in the video. And you can take a couple of swipes if you want, or you can actually saw it, however you want to do it. It works multiple ways. This is a little like what we would call score and snap, with other rigid insulations, like a rigid plastic or something like that. Those you would just score them and you could pop them over your knee. Really great for getting some aggression out. You can't really do that with this product, but you can score it to the size that you need and then just go ahead and cut through that. So now we've got our piece. Again, this is more rigid than you're likely to see with your standard batt insulation, and I apologize for that. Now we're going to go over here and actually install it. So the next thing with installing it is that we want to make sure, I'm doing this with just one hand, we want to make sure that we are putting it in place. Sorry, I'm kind of walking my way down. We're putting it in place without necessarily creating any wrinkles. You just want to compress it into this situation, which is not how you would normally do safing. But we just want it to fit in place, as an example. Now, you can see here, I have some abandoned knob and tube. I'm actually gonna pull this out and cut around that to make that fit even better. But I can actually access this from above when I work on the next phase of this. This is also knob and tube. Same situation here. If I needed to cut around this blocking, I would just take my knife out and cut that as well. So hopefully that's helpful. Remember all of your PPE. I apologize if that was hard to hear as we did that, but hopefully that will help you in the future. Again, just remember, you don't want a whole bunch of wrinkles. Just take your time and it's super easy. All right, we'll talk soon.